Exports will continue to be a major factor to enhance the country's economic growth. The final numbers for 2012 are yet to be announced, but are we on target for last year's projections? Will 2013 be a better year? And what are the challenges facing the export sector? Tonight, live on NewsLife is Mr. Sergio Ortiz-Luis, President of PhilExport. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, how did the country's exports fare in 2012? Overall, what is the final count emerging, and what are the big winners in terms of volumes and dollar earnings?
The last data that came out yesterday was the data of November. So we already know what was the total export from January to November. And the average growth for that period is 7%. The November figures showed that for the second month, the electronic sector is already in the positive territory. Unfortunately, the non-electronics products are the one which is regressing, and therefore our best guess for the month of December, or for the total overall export growth for the year, will probably be on the high of 6% and on the low of 7%, in between the two. And because of that, we will have a lower base figure for 2013 projection, which under the Export Development Act is projected at 11%. Because we did not meet our target for 2012, we probably have to raise up our targets in order to attain what we call a double up, doubling our export to $120 billion by the year 2016. The best performing sector, as usual, is the electronic sector, which is now beginning to be a contributor. I think they are now 38%, going near to where they were before, of even 60% as share in the export pie. Unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, the indigenous exporters, the small ones especially, who are not not importing much of their inputs, or are exporting all their local inputs, are the ones suffering. One reason really is the exchange rate. They're becoming non-competitive, and a lot of them has been downsizing. A lot of them have been closed, because as the peso strengthens, their competitiveness decreases, and many of them are suffering great losses.
So you mentioned the electronic sector as a good export area. Which countries get the biggest share of our electronics, and are the US and Europe on the list? Will a slowdown in these countries affect our exports?
Well, we already know that the major market, which is the US, Japan, and Europe, and the emerging destination is China, had their problems in 2010 and 2011. And the reason that they are now, that the electronic sector now is beginning to be in the positive territory, is because somehow there is some recovery in this major market. I think the US and the Japan has been leading in the recovery of the electronic sector.
Okay, so moving on, there is a major concern from your sector that if the peso appreciates further, it will have a negative impact. So what would you want the Banco Central to implement to regulate the appreciation?
Well, the last thing that we would like to do is to ask them to fix rates, because we know we cannot fix exchange rates. But there is a lot of room, there is a lot of weapons in the arsenal of the Banco Central that they can use, other than just keep on buying dollars, no? Because there is a confused policy, I think, because of the major role of BSP in keeping inflation. We believe that inflation target is too low, especially if we would like to move on, if we would like to create employment, if we would like to have a bigger GDP growth. The inflation target of 3% is simply too low. because the money available is being siphoned out of the market. So what is the effect of this targeting tulo? Well, we're buying dollars a lot, and they have breached their target already in order to curb the strength of the peso. At the same time, they're buying pesos through the special deposit account, which I think, if it has not breached 3 trillion already, it's near there. And that is a confused policy wherein in all activities, BSP is creating losses for their balance sheet. So I think they have to review the targets, because we feel that there's a big allowance, or there's a big elbow room to allow a little more inflation, higher inflation, because in an economy like ours, which we want to grow in a faster rate at 7 or even 8%, simply targeting 3% is too low, because it affects all activities, especially our borrowing mix, our buying of dollars, our pricing, and even the interest rates that businessmen have to pay, and the scarcity of peso. Even if the banks are wallowing with cash, it's all with the central bank, and the small and medium company cannot borrow.
So moving forward, in terms of employment, how many you say are being created from export?
Well, we just have a very rough estimate. What we know and what is being tracked is the BPOs, which is the services. They have, I believe, about more than 500,000 jobs there now. Overall, we believe that there's about 4 million jobs in the export sector.
That's a good number. Overall, the private sector is bullish on the prospects for sustained growth in 2013. Do you share the same view? I mean, are there any risks which should be given attention by the government?
Well, I share the view that we will be positive next year. We will grow. To what extent, I just cannot say at the moment. Nevertheless, I would say that we're missing a lot in terms of it's not the ideal growth. While we're moving forward, we're always left behind somehow because there are some policy changes that needs to be done that has not been changed so far. So I think the number one area where we have to really try and improve is the getting of the foreign direct investments, which is medyo, I think we're behind all our competitors, while we are very much ahead in hot money or portfolio money in the stock market. We are left behind in foreign direct investment. That is the one that matters. That is the one that creates job. The stock market is, to us, is fine, but that is a very, very dangerous area if you allow it to really grow so much, because even our neighbors have shied away from it, and they have put caps on this because it's a very dangerous activity.
All right, so in the light of all these issues that you've raised and positive outlooks, a final word.
Well, we hope that next year, many of the good policies that were started, especially in the area of PPP, the infrastructure programs, we hope that it move faster and a lot of them be put on in the pipeline. So because they are the ones who will create job, and that's the one that will bring down the cost of doing business.
Okay, sir, thank you very much. That was Mr. Sergio Ortiz-Luis, President of PhilExport.